Switch the audio.
Thank you. So, as Ahmad said, I am indeed coming from a U.S. foundation, so I'll bring a bit of a non-governmental civil society perspective that's more about work in practice and not so much on the policy side. I'll start with a quick example of our work and then talk about wider context, and I'll close by showing a few more foundation-supported programs that use languages in different ways for cultural understanding. Okay, so let's start. So our foundation was founded 100 years ago by Andrew Carnegie, and we do about $100 million per year in total grant making, most of it in the field of education. We here, as you'll see from our website, we're very proud to be supporters of the publications program of the Biblioteca. They're producing works in Arabic, English, and French so far that we're supporting. And on the U.S. side, we found ourselves facing a crisis of public understanding about Muslim societies, cultures, and thought. And after years of our supporting research and higher education, we identified a gap between the wealth of academic knowledge that there is, even in universities in the United States, and the public and policy discourse there. So among our various grants, one was we started up a program called Academia in the Public Sphere to bridge and connect university centers with the U.S. public, media, and policymakers. Here's the program run by the Social Science Research Council in New York. You might recognize the writer Reza Aslan there on the jury. They have awarded 39 project grants for university centers to communicate beyond their campuses and students. The projects use new media, video, podcasting, partnerships with radio and television, social media. Several produce curricula for journalists, and many cover Muslim American topics. This one is at Indiana University, and it has won some awards. So we turned for academic quality, cultural knowledge, and public education. We turned to university departments that are the strongest in language expertise and language teaching. If the Portuguese writers, Fernando Pessoa said language is our homeland, then language students are like visitors to your homeland. And language teachers are the opposite of translators. They translate you into another world. So we turn to them to support their communication and spreading their regional and cultural expertise. As Heba said today, they promote multilingualism inside an individual. So these centers that we support, they're part of a big network of 125 federally funded centers that are essential for maintaining language diversity and scholarship for language diversity in the U.S. because overall in our country, only 5% of language study at universities is of non-European languages, the languages spoken by 85% of the world. These centers actually teach about 250 languages, 60% of the less commonly taught languages, and 80% of what we call least commonly taught languages studied in our universities are sustained by these centers, happen at these centers. Half of the doctorates, half of the language textbooks that are written, including textbooks for rare languages. They also produce world cultures textbooks, primary and secondary school textbooks, and they train secondary school teachers. The picture for study abroad is kind of similar. Fewer than 2% of our students study abroad, and of that 2%, about 2% of them go to predominantly Muslim countries. That comes down to about 7,000 per year, and over half of them go to sub-Saharan African countries. Very few go to Middle Eastern, broader Middle Eastern countries. And another organization that we support does capacity building in American universities and overseas universities, trying to matchmake them and increase their international partnerships and student exchange flow between the two of them. American teachers of foreign languages are organized in support of multilingualism, although they might not call it that. 9,000 of them belong to this American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, and our Modern Language Association has 30,000 members teaching languages at university level. And these groups are now fighting sweeping budget cuts to the teaching of major languages, French, Russian, German, Greek and Latin. Mainstream graduate-level language study is being severely cut back, especially at U.S. public universities. And only introductory levels are going to be taught if these cuts come through. So groups like this, they organize to defend both the teaching of languages and the teaching of rare and diverse languages. Likewise, the Association of International Educators. These big organizations have regular meetings where methods and how to increase the number of languages taught are discussed, and I'm just highlighting them as contact points, allies, and conveners for promoting multilingualism. I'll skip that. The online learning tools produced by educator networks like this are thousands. Language Source is just one collection. A lot of the material is freely accessible online. There's another good one called Europodians, which comes from the European Union. And now I'll highlight just three examples of foundation-supported programs. One is Qatar Foundation International. They started up just a couple of years ago, and before starting, they talked to all of us in the field, and they said, what works to promote cultural understanding? They surveyed the whole field, and then they started 2 language-based programs. One is called Yalla, crowdsourced Arabic, English, youth chat rooms, which they're partnering with Midan, which many of you may know. And another is this one, Arabic Language and Culture at U.S. public high schools, piloting in Boston and Washington. The students also get to travel to Doha, and they'll be expanding this program to other cities and to Brazil and later other countries. Second model is the British Council. They bring in most of their funds from language teaching, but then they spend funds on cultural education, cultural understanding programs, including student exchange, and now a great program, Our Shared Europe, which I won't go into, but it's good. A third different program, while about 53% of Europeans know a second language, only 18% of Americans know a second language, and yet foreign language media and newspapers are the fastest growing segment of U.S. journalism industry. An NGO called New America Media in San Francisco develops this media diversity for media in dozens of languages. It offers capacity building to 2,000 what they call ethnic news organizations, trainings, partnerships with journalism schools. But I think most importantly, the organization routes advertisers to these media who might not be aware of them, aware of those audiences. And it brings these newspapers and media both operating funds and visibility. And coming toward the end. Here's just the array of U.S. foundations that support multilingual media in the United States through New America, including some of us there support multilingual polling so that diaspora communities can be heard in the U.S. public debate. And again, these are some allies for the multilingual movement, even if they do not think of it in those terms. They may not even be aware of governmental or rights-based approaches, but they're operating in a civil society sphere. So I'll just close in saying that I hope I'm showing how language expertise can be used as a leverage point. We use it as a credential for expertise. to try to vet knowledge that's being communicated to the public. We use it as a base, a platform and source for international education. We use it as a conduit for cultural understanding, and we use it as an embodiment of cultural diversity. And my last slide is a big cultural event happening in New York this season. It's a free exhibit in the New York Public Library showing texts of the Abrahamic faiths, a diversity of languages coming together to illuminate interfaith understanding.